Wouldn't it be great if you could release your stress by doodling? So, whether you think you can draw or not, it doesn't really matter. But we're going to be talking about ways that you can release stress and other things by doodling. So, today I'm happy to have on the Crack the Code podcast here Myriam Martinez. She's a women's mental well being coach, mentor, speaker, and trainer. She brings nearly 20 years' experience in the mental health field as a licensed therapist and registered art therapist to her coaching work with women. Her work focuses on supporting women around issues of stress, self inadequacy, and self identity. She gently guides women on their path to self discovery, building confidence, and prioritizing their own needs. Originally from Panama, Myriam brings her experiences as an immigrant navigating between two different worlds into her work, empowering women to take ownership of their story and design their lives based on what ignites and nourishes them. So, welcome, Myriam. Excited to have you on the show today.
Thanks, Cora. I'm really happy to be here.
Yeah, and it's cool. Panama is a cool place. Have you been back there since you immigrated to the U.S.?
I have visited back a few times, and I'm hoping to get back there next year again.
Yeah, I think it's a cool place. I haven't, one of the places I've not been to. I've been to a lot of countries, but
So
that's super
hopefully you
cool.
can make it out there soon.
So tell us a little bit about how your journey, how you got into this. I know we're going to be talking about doodling, but you give us a little bit of your background and how you got into the areas that you're working in.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've always been interested in psychology and how people work and think and function since I was in high school. But I started off as a preschool teacher, and I did that for almost 8 years. And I really, of course, love working with children, certainly around the art making and their experience of art making being so from the heart, right? There's no thought for them. It's just something that they do. And so I came across an art therapy graduate program in my community, and I just thought, well, this would be a good way to work with children in a therapeutic way. I'd always been interested in working, as a therapist or a psychologist. So I went in to apply for the master's program, and they informed me that I needed to take 12 units of art
Oh,
in order to be in the program. And that's my background. I don't have a background in art. I have never called myself an artist. It wasn't an interest for me. So I was bordering on offended when they suggested that I should take 12 units of art. And of course, it was the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because I got to learn about art making through the lens of art therapy. And really, what that means is that you use art as a tool. It's not about an outcome. It's not about a product. It's not about how it should or shouldn't look. There aren't really any rules to it at all, right?
yeah.
It's just this really beautiful mechanism that provides so many benefits. And I started to lean into doodling specifically because as adults, we have so many stories about whether we're good at art or not good at art, or whether we draw or not, and we immediately get in our heads about it, right? And that's one of the things that I like to help women do, is get out of your head and into
Mm.
your body and your wisdom, that exists in there. So when I started working with the doodling, it just seemed like people could be more open to it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
It's less intrusive. There's no expectation. You can just let go. And when I teach that, that's really the parallel that I'm teaching, right? This is an opportunity to learn to let go, to not think about an outcome, to just tap into your body and your wisdom, right? And see what emerges from there.
Yeah. And I think you're right with that because a lot of us, I know my husband and I both are have always considered ourselves non-artistic in any way, shape, or form. And yet our twin boys are super artistic and musical. We're not like, we don't even know where this is coming from. When they were kids, we could have filled up our whole house with paper from the amount of doodling that they did. And they were always drawing while they were at school. Sometimes they got in trouble for doing that, but I think that helped them concentrate. But I think as adults, if we don't doodle or draw as we're growing up, we could just think, what's the point? Why would we do that? It's almost like journaling. Some people aren't sure if they should journal, or they're afraid to get those words on the paper.
Yeah,
And so you're worried about if it's right or not. And I know I did your doodling exercises from your website. It was really cool. So if anyone, we'll talk about that a little bit later. but it's to allow ourselves to be creative again, because if we're not, and I know personally I'm not a super creative, I don't think of myself as a super creative person, so to just allow that creativity to flow and just go with it is really difficult at first.
It is difficult, but I mean, when as I listen to you, there's a couple things that come up. One is the misconception of what is art and what makes somebody an artist. And I think
Mhm.
that it comes from, in my opinion, a very kind of elitist lens. Which is that you have to have a certain art expertise. You should be able to draw lifelike or create lifelike form, et cetera. And that is the belief system that makes people feel like they can't be an artist or that they're not artists,
Yeah,
right? But when you redefine the word art to just be an expression, right? That's
yeah,
all. Then
yeah,
it just changes. There's no expectation, right?
yeah.
There's no right or wrong. So I think that that's one of the things that gets in our head from very early on. When I was working in the school system, I remember being in a kindergarten classroom, just observing the children, and a little boy was coloring his sheet, and the teacher came around and said, fire trucks aren't blue,
Yeah.
right? And I thought,
Yeah.
there it is. That's
Yes.
where it starts, right? Because
Yeah.
now this child feels shame, they did it wrong, and now they're going to start thinking there's a right or a wrong way to do this, right? So it starts very, very early on from hearing these kinds of comments from people in our lives where that doesn't look like a tiger, or really that's a tree. That kind of stuff makes you feel
Hmm.
really bad. So I think that's a lot of what I think gets in the way for people in terms of art.
I'm sure it does because, yeah, oh, the sky can't be green or the grass can't be blue or whatever, all of that
That's
stuff.
right. That's
And
right.
then as we grow up and we go maybe see an art show somewhere and we see someone that's like basically put a bunch of garbage together and it's art, and you're thinking,
Hmm.
That's weird."
Huh, that's
Yeah.
not quite what I was thinking about it,
Yeah.
but it's interesting because it does create kind of like I mean, in a way, I call it a prison, for all
Hmm.
of us, because as human beings, we are creative by nature. That's why we have a creative brain,
Hmm.
right? That's why we have our right brain, so to speak, because it's so expansive, and that's where we do create, innovate, problem solve, all these amazing things happen in that. So to deny our creativity is like denying a part of ourselves, right? And creative expression can be anything. It can
Yeah.
be cooking, it can be gardening, it could be dancing, it doesn't matter, And in terms of health benefits, to just look at art is sometimes enough
Yeah.
to
Yeah. For sure.
regulate your body and your nervous system, right? So to expand the definition, right,
Hmm.
and to really feel that's all encompassing, that there's a place for all of us within that creative realm.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love with the doodling, like you say, there really is, I think, no expectation when you think of it as a doodle. That's a really good place to start.
Hmm.
And we need a break. I mean, we need to give ourselves, we're bombarded in this day and
Absolutely.
age with so much communication. We're on our phones, our computers, and everything. And we totally need a break from all of that kind of thing. So doing something that's artsy, like you say, whether it could be dancing, cooking, whatever, but
Yeah.
doodling, just something that's sort of relaxing and not, you're not thinking about it.
That's
But
exactly it. Using another part of the brain, right? It's like we
yeah,
can't just be thinking all the time. I always say, like, our left brain is awesome, it helps us in so many ways, but it's very limited. That's its problem. And that's why we feel frustrated, like, I can't get out of this. I can't. Well, you need to go use another part right now so that you can get that flow going again.
yeah. So when people are working with you, like how does this sort of process work when you, because it can help with so many different things. Give us an idea of how this process would work.
Well, what's interesting, I immediately think of my own experience that I had recently in one of the workshops that I ran. And we start with doodling, and we were talking a little bit about what are some obstacles, in your confidence, essentially. And so I invited everybody to pick which one, right after of the five that I listed, and let's work with creating an image of that. What does that mean? So for me, the image that came up was a giant blue ribbon with the number one on it, and it was at the
Mm.
top of the page, right? And then I drew a little person at the end of at the bottom of the page. And so what I shared with everybody was, okay, so I'm learning that I am having way too high of an expectation of myself. That's what this image is showing me. I immediately connected to what is happening in here and what this obstacle is for me. And look at me at the bottom of the page, all small, almost submissive to that, as if I have no power. So how can I change this image, right, to represent where I would like to be?
Yeah.
Right. And now that changes. So there was a sensation and an emotion that was coming up when I saw myself as small, against this unrealistic expectation. But that awareness then creates a prompt to make a change. So creating an image now where it's like, oh no, I don't need to be number one. I'm just kind of happy right here.
Yeah.
Okay, I feel better
Yeah.
now. And that was such a good awareness, because the beauty is that that was outside of my consciousness,
Yeah.
right? I didn't know. I'm like, oh, I'm doing great. I'm fine, and it's like, oh, wait, the image is saying something different though. And when I really connected with the image, it really was true for me that I was having
Yeah.
this expectation, so because the art process is tapping into your unconscious material, right? Stuff that's out of your awareness, and that's where all the goodies are,
Hmm.
right? It's like that's where
Yes.
all the yummies and all of the insights and everything that's going to help you move forward is, all that self-awareness. So it's really an amazing and powerful tool. And again, it does not require really anything out of you. In fact, I share with people that I call myself a stick figure artist, and when I
Yeah.
do art with them online, I'm like, oh yeah, look at my Van Gogh.
Yeah.
Here's my little stick figure. And again, it just helps people relax that this is not about that.
Yeah. Yeah. I know. I mean, that's what my husband and I always say, that we're lucky if we can draw a stick figure. So I guess that's
Yeah, and have fun
a
with
good
it.
place to start with.
Yeah, and just have some fun. Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool. And it's amazing how, if when you can allow that creativity to go through, what comes out. So I guess you must start with some maybe simple exercises. If people haven't drawn, they might not be able to think that much in a way like,
Right.
oh, what does confidence mean to you? I'm just like,
Well,
blank.
the beauty of starting with doodling, right, is
What do you
that
do?
you are already in the practice of not thinking. And that's what I try to help people bring into their lives. Like, yeah, you're doing this in doodling, but this practice you can bring into your life all day,
Yeah.
right? Which is what's coming up for me, and to be paying attention to it, to be mindful about it, right? And that you're not actually thinking about anything in that moment, that you are tuning into yourself and your own self-awareness and intuition and wisdom. That's what you're bringing from the doodling. So yeah, we have a lot of fun and all that kind of stuff in my workshops, but at the end I'm also showing you, look at what you're doing and how this translates into your daily life, to be able to let go.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Mhm.
like I say, we totally need that in this day and age for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so what kind of things do you offer? Do you do like generally workshops? Is it one-on-one? How does that work?
Yeah, I actually have, quite a few things. And because you've already dove into that, I offer my doodling webinar for free on my website, because I really want people to be able to access that and learn about how that can be helpful, for them. But I do also offer online workshops. I do group programs and individual coaching as well. And we use all of these magical tools that, really tap into your own wisdom. Like,
Yeah.
you actually already know,
Yeah.
right?
It's
But
just
your
getting it
head
out.
keeps getting in the way. It just keeps getting in the way, And so that's why I try to help people override that. That's really what we're doing. We're overriding this cognitive brain that just wants to yap and yap and yap, and just come into yourself and
Yeah.
what's true for you.
And with the workshops, do you have a theme, do they have different workshops or
Yeah, so one of my most popular ones is the confident wild woman. So that's my theme, is teaching women how to tap into their wild.
Yeah.
And, we look at what are the obstacles, we look at confidence, defining confidence, what are the obstacles, and then what are some tools that you can use to overcome that. But we do integrate the doodling and, neuroscience and how it's working and how it's going to help you move forward with what you need to do, with what your goals are. So they're a lot of fun. No matter what we're doing, we're going to tap into doing some fun stuff. And that's one of the things that I feel really, really passionate about, because again, we spend so much time in our left brain, adulting, and we don't incorporate enough fun,
Yeah.
enough play. It's almost like we think as adults that we're not allowed to. And it's like, no, no, no,
Mhm.
that's actually really inhibiting.
Yeah.
It doesn't let you like have your say, in a lot of ways. So I really coach play and fun as a resource to help you get to where you want to go. Whatever it is, whether it's life or business, it's like, oh no, this is the tool that's going to get you there.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love that because I know for myself, even I'm trying to incorporate more fun and different activities because it's so easy to just get wrapped up in the everyday things, after raising kids and doing all that stuff.
Hmm.
And you kind of forget in a way,
It's how important. It's so
kids play,
vital.
you tell the
Yeah.
kids to go play and have fun, but you don't say, oh, you go play and have fun.
Well, there's like this invisible rule that somehow as adults, like that's supposed to be over and done with. And it's like, well, look how unhappy everybody is though.
Yeah.
Right? So something's not right here if that's the
Yeah.
route that we're taking, for sure.
Yeah. And I loved how you call it wild. So where did that sort of idea come up with this wild?
Well, a lot of the literature that I read is, a lot of feminist literature and, women empowerment. But the book that motivated me the most was Dr. Estes' book. And why am I losing the title right now? Okay, but it's really about that feminine archetype. And it's the wild woman archetype, which is
Okay.
that powerful woman connected to herself, feeling her power, right? Seeing herself as a person, because that's a lot of what women struggle with. It's like, I'll say something about your body, and sometimes women are like, wait, what about my body? What
Hmm.
did you say?
Hmm.
And it's like, right, yeah, you have a body, right? You're
Yes.
a person on this earth. And so the wild, for me, really comes from being able to tap into your whole self, right? And so wild is waking up to your life. It's yours. Nobody's going to do it for you,
Hmm.
right? And the I is for ignite your intuition, right? That inner knowing that you already have. And the L, easy, love yourself fiercely. Love yourself, treat yourself like you would a good friend, right? And the D is for dare to be unapologetically you. Stop comparing yourself to other people. You can only be you,
Yeah.
right?
Wow.
That's the only you can be. So it doesn't help to say, well, she does this and he does that, right?
Yeah. That's so awesome. And I know,
Mhm.
especially for women, it can be so difficult to love ourselves and to be kind to ourselves. Like
So hard.
our self-critic is so nasty. And the stuff that we tell ourselves that we would never say to another person is
Never.
crazy.
Never, exactly. And I feel like that's why being able to tap into more of our childlike states, especially for women, is really important. I recently read something that said that it's socially acceptable for men to still have toys, still have all of their
Mhm.
Star Wars stuff
Yeah.
and play video games, but it's not for women.
Huh.
We don't get to keep our dolls and we don't get to keep our toys, and I was like, oh my God, I think that's true. How awful.
Oh, I never really thought of that before.
I hadn't either, but it kind of clicked. I'm like, I think I do see that in our society where men can have toy collections and play games but women aren't really doing that,
Hmm. Interesting. I
right?
wonder if that's something to do with, raising kids and whatnot. And then when we get older, then the guys have bigger toys. You know what I mean?
Yes, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the author was
Yeah,
hypothesizing,
yeah.
that it is our conditioning again,
Yeah,
just
yeah,
conditioning, like you have to be the person in charge that cares about, there's no time for you.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Interesting. Oh,
Hmm.
well, I'm so glad we got to have this conversation today. So if people want to get in touch with you, Miriam, what's the best way for them to do it? And of course, everything will be in the show notes as well. But
Yeah, so I can be reached really any way. You can email me, you can find me on my website, you can find me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. right? And I would love to connect with people. I really love to be able to connect with people and share this
Yeah.
amazing, powerful tool.
Yeah. And what's one final tip if someone's, a little bit nervous about trying some doodling, they've never done it before? Is there something you can,
Yeah, I mean, just put a line on the page.
yeah,
Yeah. And once that line's on the page, you can start,
yeah,
right? Because that's the biggest thing for any of us with anything. It's just like it's that first step. And the pressure that we put on ourselves is that the first step should be this big thing. And it's like, no, no, the first step should be so small,
yeah. I
right? So
love
just a
that.
line on a paper will get those juices flowing and help you start getting into it.
I love that. Well, thanks again so much for having me, being on the show. And for the listeners, if you haven't, picked up a pencil, a pen, whatever you've got handy, you can go with colors. Can be fancy, not fancy. Give it a try. And if you're not sure about getting started, I like to go back to Mel Robbins' tip, your what's called the 5-second habit or whatever, and just count
Mhm.
backwards. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and let it rip. Just start.
That's
And
right.
yeah, because it is just never too late.
And it really isn't too late. Absolutely.